Hello everyone, welcome back to a new video and welcome to my studio. Today what I wanted to do was take you through a more in-depth and updated studio tour. So for those of you who are new around here, I have recently moved into a studio that is about 5 minutes away from my home. So I'm no longer making art at home. I have a dedicated and separate art space. And I have to say I'm really loving it. It is so nice to have that separation, but also be super close to home so I can nip back if I need to, and it doesn't take long to get here in the mornings. So I've really been enjoying that. And I've been getting up quite early and getting to the studio at about 8 o'clock, and I can miss the hustle and bustle of traffic and just settle into either making art or working on my art business, which I absolutely love. So it's been wonderful to have this dedicated space. We've been here for almost 3 months and it's taken quite a while to get my studio feeling how I want it to feel, but I'm feeling it now. I'm absolutely loving how it's coming together. And at the moment it's spring here and it's starting to get really sunny and summery, and I've been using this time to give the whole place a bit of a refresh and get it feeling cozy and comfortable and functional. So I would love to take you through, show you what I have done, and also offer up some tips on how you can create your own creative sanctuary. And I've had many different studio spaces over the years. I've worked at the kitchen table, I've worked in my garage, and one thing that I have learned is that there is no such thing as a perfect studio, that there are always going to be challenges and problem solving, and once we get into the space you'll see what I mean. So let's head in there and take a good look around. So here we are, and it has changed quite a lot since when I first moved in. And one of the things that I most love about this space, but it's also one of the challenges, is that it gets so much natural light. So you can see that there are windows on almost every wall, which provides a beautiful view out into the garden, which I have to say is very inspiring. And I also love the proximity to the garden if I actually want to go outside and do some work, especially as we are getting into the warmer weather. It means that I can go outside and use the little table. There's a patio area and there's also lovely veranda areas. But when it gets warm and sunny, the sun really comes in here. So I've already organized to get some air conditioning put in, and I'll talk a bit more about that in a minute. But the other thing that I have done is move things around to better suit where the sun is coming in. So I have moved my table. Some of you will have seen that my table was facing in a different direction and it was just getting a little bit too much sun. I've moved the table and now I actually have a lovely view out into the garden. So it is taking me a little while to work out where best to put things. And one of the things that I am considering is getting a bench height table, because I am finding that more and more I am working standing up rather than sitting down. So over here I have a small bench that's at the kind of height that I really like working at, but I'm mostly using this as a storage station for my art supplies because it has that close proximity to my easel. But what I am thinking of doing is changing my table and bringing that up to bench height, because that way I can then work in a more comfortable way, particularly when I am standing up and working on acrylic paintings, which is what I have been mostly doing in here. You'll see that most of the work around me is acrylic based. I haven't been doing quite as much watercolor work in this particular studio, but maybe that will come with the warmer weather, because often I switch into watercolor mode as soon as it starts to get hot, and I find that my acrylic paints are drying really fast. So over here you can see that I have this big basin, and I was considering moving the basin, but once I started using it I really did find that it was incredibly helpful. And even though I have a small basin over there and another basin across in one of the sheds that's opposite the studio, there is something so beautiful when you are working, when you can just turn around and reach the basin behind you. So I am finding that there is a really nice ease and workflow that comes from having the basin there and then the easel. So I'm enjoying the easel. I mentioned that in one of my previous videos. You might want to check that out because I talk about it in a little bit more depth, but I have really enjoyed that transition from working on a wall to working on an easel. And I think for now I'm going to stick with an easel setup. So what else can I tell you about this area? You might see that there are some wooden panels in front of the sink where the drain and the pipes are. The reason for that is because it was quite ugly before. You could see everything that was underneath the sink area. And we've put these ply boards here just to cover everything up. You can quite easily lift them off. And I am thinking about painting them. So at the moment they are just primed with white paint. What do you think? Do you think maybe I should get in there and paint something on these boards just to make them look a little bit more exciting? I'm not sure, but that's what I'm leaning towards. So aside from that, in this area, mostly I just keep brushes, water spray, things like that over here. And then in this corner behind me, I have my IKEA drawers. So these are really handy. I have another set in my office, but these are, I've mentioned them in many of my previous videos, but I love storing my paper and any sort of finished artwork and things like that in these drawers. So on top of the drawers at the moment, I have this area where I have all my mediums. So I have varnish and gel medium and other types of mediums that I use in this corner. So just having them all in one area is really helpful. So you might have noticed that I have quite a few plants in here, and the more plants I put in, the happier I get. That seems to be the general gist of it. I'm really enjoying the space now that there's more greenery in it. So I have got this one down here and also this one up here. I actually wanted to get a much bigger hanging plant in this section, but when I went to our local nursery, they didn't have any. So I've just got this little one at the moment, but eventually I might add a couple more or get a bigger one. And one of the things that I've been doing over the last couple of weeks is hanging more of my artwork up. And that is also making the space feel so much more inspiring. I really love having art on the walls, and it doesn't have to be fully finished. This painting is only probably 3/4 finished. And one of the things that I do like to do is just put up some pieces that are in progress, just so that I can kind of think about them, ponder them, but also to motivate me to finish them. So some of these are quite old pieces that I haven't worked on for quite a while, and I hope to get them finished in the next few months. So another thing about having various spots that you can hang your artwork is that you can swap them over so that you can test out different art in different spaces and get a feel for how things work. So I've set up this little section here where I can hang 4 of my medium-sized wood panel pieces. These ones here are finished, but I haven't actually varnished them yet. They have been in my varnishing pile for several years, but they look great just as they are. I really like the botanical feel of these pieces. It fits really well with the area here because this is kind of like my main plant corner because it gets a lot of light and the plants really like that. Although I might have to adjust things as we get into the heat of summer and more light starts to come in. I'm just going to have to wait and see because this is the first year in the studio and I'm not quite sure how the light moves throughout the year. One of the things I have been thinking about is putting a pergola. There is like a frame for a pergola outside the studio, but it doesn't have a roof. And if I do find that there is too much light coming in, I say me, it won't be me. I might get my hubby to put some kind of roof on there so that I get a little bit more shade. But it's going to be a bit of a delicate balance because obviously natural light is lovely, but too much of it can mean it gets too hot, particularly in our climate. So I'll be, making adjustments as we go. So I have this basket here and I actually used to use this all the time when I was moving between my home studio and our other kind of office place that we used to use when we were editing videos and recording videos, but it's just been sitting here. So the reason for that is because I haven't had to move around, which has been wonderful. I've got all of my stuff in the one spot, which is the first time I've had that. And I haven't been carting supplies from home into other areas. So I will probably repurpose that basket for something else. I really do love the basket. You might have noticed I have quite a lot of baskets. I'm a bit of a basket collector. I recently got a few baskets on sale for some of my plants, and they were a really good deal because I do find like pots are really expensive, so quite often I'll just use baskets and then put a plastic lining or a little drip tray in the basket so that the basket doesn't get wet. But anyway, that's about the plants. What else can I tell you? I want to make sure that I share all the little details because there are things in here that just make me smile and make me happy. And one of them is this rack here where I get to hang my scarves. It's been cold the last few months, but we're heading into the warmer weather. But sometimes when I'd come here in the morning, it'd be really, really chilly. So I'd want to put something on like that. I've got my apron and jumpers. So what I've started doing is going to the local thrift shops or charity shops, op shops, whatever you call them, around this area, of which there are plenty, and picking up jumpers and clothes that I can wear when I'm painting. So this was only, I think, about $5 that I picked up. So this is like just a really nice cozy painting jumper. And I've got like a shirt here as well. Just in case you were curious, if I'm wearing a nice top or something, I'll either wear an apron or I might just put a shirt over the top or a jumper, depending on whether it's warm or cool. So because of that, I just really love having this little area, and I might end up with another basket that I can put more clothes in as I collect more of them. In fact, I actually have another basket over there, so maybe I'll use that one. So speaking of over there, let's head over to the other side of the room and just check out some of the other little features and areas that are here. So this was the basket that I was talking about. So at the moment, I have all kinds of different fabrics in here that I sometimes use in my art, particularly when I'm making mixed media collages. And then I have a couple of crates here. I've got some flower pressing stuff. I sometimes use flowers in my mixed media collages as well, pressed flowers. And it's going to be really fun to take things from the garden and use them in my art. And I've been experimenting a bit with that already. Some of you have seen me doing some jelly plate printing using botanicals out of the garden. So I really love having the garden. I want to use it as much as I can. And then over here I have another crate. These crates are from IKEA. I find that IKEA has so many handy things for artists, and I like to combine IKEA things with things that I get from the charity shop, things that I've collected over the years, and just have a combination of different kinds of storage items. So in here I have a whole lot of sketchbooks. So I love working in sketchbooks. It's one of my go-tos whenever I feel a little bit creatively stuck or I just want to get into a good flow, then I head to my sketchbooks. Behind me, I have a storage area for larger canvases. So I have a few canvases on the go there. Up here, I have my wooden panels. I've been trying to order panels mostly in the same size so that I can easily swap them out, and it also makes it easier when you are selling work that you have the same size and you don't have all sorts of different sizes. So I have been trying to do that. Behind me I have an IKEA shelf. This has been with me for many years now and has been in several of my studios. I've just brought one in here. In it I have some artwork, just some nice little trinkets, some books, some of my favourite books that I like to refer to for botanical inspiration and some bird inspiration and other things, and a bit of a miscellaneous basket there, and some other books as well down the bottom. And then I have my table. I mentioned earlier that I have been thinking about changing this table. I've been looking for a bench that is on wheels. I think that would be really versatile. I'd love to be able to maybe raise the bench up and down, so even a standing desk is an option. I'm not really sure. If you've got any ideas, let me know. But for now, this is working fine. This is an old table. This is over 100 years old. So we've had this for just a couple of years, but we bought it from this family that had it for forever. So yeah, it's a really lovely piece to have in the studio. And what else can I tell you? I have been working here mostly on jelly plate printing. So that's what I've been experimenting with at the moment. And one of the things that I have been doing is getting out some of my older canvases. So I have quite a lot of these. These are 12-inch by 12-inch canvases that I often do experimental work on. Some of them have been going for years. And whenever I want to try out a new concept, I'll get some of these out just to have a bit of a play. And what I've been doing is bringing in some of my botanical prints and adding them in as collage layers. So that's been a fun little experiment, and you can actually see a few more of these up on the wall above the sink area. So I've been hanging them up. Some of them are in progress, most of them aren't finished yet, but it just gives me the opportunity to have a look at them and see what I'm going to do next. So because I don't have a huge amount of table space, I've been trying to keep this relatively clear and pack it up at the end of the day and just give myself room to then come back and do more work on. And that's where having things like trolleys and lots of different storage containers, so that when I'm finished, I can then put my paints away. So quite often I will head over to my little art bench and just gather up whatever I need and bring it over to my table and use it in that session. And then if I can, and I have the time, at the end of the day, I'll kind of pack things back up and then just bring them over and put them back. So that's a little practice that I have been trying to get into. It doesn't always happen, but I really do like having all these different kinds of storage boxes that I can pull out depending on what kind of work I'm doing. And because I am a mixed media artist, I'm changing up my supplies all the time. So sometimes I'm using acrylic paints, sometimes I'm using watercolor paints, sometimes it's collage. And so this enables me to bring what I'm working on at any particular time over to the area where I'm doing it, whether that's at the table or at the easel. So I have quite a few trolleys and I do wheel them over depending on what it is that I'm doing. But particularly when I'm working at the easel, then I might bring over something like this that has a whole lot of paints and things like that in there. And then I also have this new one. I'll just show it to you. Some of you will have seen these, but this one actually has a lid. So, oh, it's caught on the rug. This one here has the lid on it. You can just get that at IKEA. And that way you can put your paint palette on there. So this is an enamel baker's tray that I quite often use as my paint palette when I am doing acrylic painting on the easel. So this enables me to have an easy to access setup. And then, as I said before, I have the sink behind me, so it's really easy, really comfortable. And the easel has plenty of adjustment. It has this little stool, or else I can work at it when I'm just standing, which I quite often do as well. So all in all, it's working quite well. And I can move the easel depending on the light too. So if it's too bright, I can bring it around to this side and, you know, whatever's most comfortable at any given time. So I just sorted out this area behind me yesterday and I'm really loving how it turned out. What I wanted to do was to get some more art up on the walls, and I came up with the idea of just hanging up some artwork that is on paper, but using these ball clips to hang them up. And that way, once again, they're really easy for me to change out. These pieces are finished. They're in my pile of varnishing that seems to be endless, and hopefully I will get to at some stage. I meant to finish these ages ago, but we ended up getting this new studio and that kind of threw my plans up in the air, and I've been really busy sorting lots of things out, including getting this studio organised. I have this beautiful cabinet which I got from our local garden centre. It wasn't actually for sale, but I convinced them to sell it to me, which is really wonderful, and I love it. So I really wanted to make this a really nice and relaxing, inspiring section of the studio. In this basket, I just have some things like incense, essential oils, a notebook, a few things that I might use when I am just starting a painting session, just to get myself into a nice headspace, a calming kind of mindset for creativity. I guess you could call it artistic rituals. So sometimes I do things like write in my journal, light a candle, burn some incense, something like that, just to get in a flow, particularly when I'm doing sketchbook work. And so I wanted to have some of that stuff there. Once again, plants, artwork, and then in this cabinet, I actually do have quite a bit of storage, which I'm hoping to set up a little bit differently to get more in there, but it's quite a handy space to store some of the things that aren't so pretty and you don't want on display. So I have got some tools and things in there, and also, what else have I got in there? I've got some oil paints in there too, because I very rarely use oil paints. So this is where I sort of put things where I want them out of the way and I'm not going to be using them all the time. I have to be a bit careful with the cabinet because it is quite delicate. So it's actually quite funny. Yesterday I decided that I wanted to put up some fairy lights, and so we ended up putting all these screws in and putting the fairy lights around the window. But once it was up, I just didn't like how it looked. It looked really messy, and I don't know, maybe I'm not a fairy light person after all. So I ended up taking them down. Maybe they just weren't the right type of fairy lights. But anyway, I ended up putting these prayer flags up instead, just to brighten up the space and use some of the hooks that we put up. And I really like how the light shines through them, and they all have really sweet messages on there. So I think that fits with the vibe and the feel that I wanted this area to have. And then over in the corner, I have some more plants. I have just a little, what do you call this? A wall hanging. I made this at a workshop years ago. Just hung that up there. And I have a mirror. So I just picked up that mirror yesterday. So that's really handy to have, especially when I'm filming and I just wanted to check that everything is looking okay. And then through here is a little bathroom. So there's a toilet and a small little basin and a shower area there. And actually I use that area for more storage in relation to canvases and substrates and things like that. So that's really handy to have because it's out of the way. So I'm trying to think, is there anything else I wanted to mention as far as how I've got the space set up? There are a couple of things that I do want to add into the space. One thing I am considering is getting a chair, because I feel like I need a comfy chair, an armchair, and I have thought about whether or not I might put that in this section here, which at the moment is just storing random items. But I thought if I could get a chair in here, then I would be able to sit down, look out at the garden, which is beautiful, but also look at any main painting that I'm working on on my easel. So I thought that that would be a really nice addition to the space. The other thing, I did mention it, but I'll just say it again in case you've noticed that there's this big blank section of wall here. I do need to keep this area free because this is where the air conditioning unit will go in. So it's pretty much the only wall space that I have. So air conditioning unit will go in there so that this can be comfortable all year round. And I have put as many pieces as I can fit at the moment up here. I love having these up here. Many of them I do need to finish. There are a few here where I have been experimenting with the jelly plate printing and adding in some collage papers. I also took on the challenge last month of using colours that I wouldn't normally use. So this piece in particular has this really luminous yellow in it. And last month in my year-long program, the Creative Blend Art program, the theme was permission to play. And for that, what I decided to do was focus on learning a new skill, jelly plate printing, and using some unusual colours in my artwork. So that's just reminded me of another thing that I was going to share with you. I do have a few new art supplies that I have recently opened up the box, and I thought just to finish off I could run through some of those art supplies and find homes for them in the studio. So I don't have too many things to share with you, but I thought I would just run through the box of goodies that just arrived. So I have been topping up on golden fluid acrylic because I do love using these paints, especially when I'm working on larger canvases. I just really like how easy it is to cover a large area because of the fluidity of the paint. It makes it really nice and quick to put down base layers, and also they're great for getting drips as well if you like fluid effects in your art, which I do. So I have got a whole lot of these big bottles of some of my favorite colors. So I just thought I would share those with you. I also have a big tub of the golden titanium white. I haven't used that in a while, but I have heard many artists say that the golden brand of titanium white is one of their favorites just for the creamy feel of it, very buttery kind of consistency. It's a heavy based formula. And then I have a couple of mediums as well. Actually, I have another tub of the golden heavy bodied paint. This one is in one of my favorite pre-mixed colors from Golden. It's the Titan Mars Pale. And I love this color. I've used it in many paintings. And it's just one of those convenience colors that you can use without having to mix yourself. But I do have to be careful because sometimes I use it too much. I looked back through some of my paintings and photographs of my paintings, and I can see that there was a period of time when I was loving this color because my work was very peachy and pink all the time. So sometimes you can get in a bit of a color obsession. So as far as the mediums that I got a pastel ground from Golden. This is great if you want to add a bit of tooth to a mixed media painting, which will then allow you to come over the top with things like pencil and pastel more easily. So in particular, if you're using products like these that are a bit glossy, sometimes when you try and draw over the top, if you are doing a mixed media artwork and you're using something like a pastel, it just doesn't have anything to grip to. So you can add the pastel ground to give you that really nice surface to draw on. And then I also have the Golden Soft Gel Gloss Acrylic Medium. And I wanted to try this as an adhesive. I've used various versions of Golden's gel mediums for adhesive, but I haven't tried the soft gel version. I think I've got the heavy version and some other version. But what I was finding is that my heavy gel medium is drying out quite a lot, especially in our heat. And I wanted to have a gel medium that doesn't get so thick. So I thought that this might be a good option. It's not really fluid either. So I wanted to try this out for gluing down different kinds of collage elements into my paintings. So some of those little canvases that I talked about, I'll be using this product to adhere some of these papers onto the canvas. So just another gel medium to add to my collection. So I also have some new Daniel Smith watercolors. So I wanted to share this little haul with you and let me know if you'd like to see these colors in a video and I could swatch them out, because they are all from Daniel Smith's luminescent range, which means that they have a bit of a shimmer and a sparkle to them. I have a few of the duochrome colors and also some of the, let me just check, what are they? Iridescent. So these can be really lovely for just adding just a little bit of an extra kind of wow or a bit of a glisten or a shimmer to your paintings. I quite like mixing them in with other colours, particularly if the shimmer is a little bit too much, so that it is a more subtle effect. But these look like really beautiful colours to have a bit of a play with. And I also have some buff titanium, which I use quite a lot as a creamy colour. This one here came as a small tube. I actually meant to order this in the 15 ml size, but I must have made a mistake when I was ordering them. So these are the colours that I have selected. So there's the duochrome oceanic, aquamarine, hibiscus, and then there's iridescent moonstone, what's that one, goldstone, sapphire, and ruby. There's just such a beautiful range of colours there. So I am planning on getting back into some more watercolour work. You can see that mostly around me I have acrylic-based paintings, but generally I actually do a lot more watercolour work than acrylic, but I just got excited with having this space. I haven't had much space to do bigger acrylic paintings, so you can see I've got plenty of inspiration around to encourage me to do both styles of work. But eventually, once I get some new watercolour paintings happening, I'll try and find another area in the studio to display some of them, or I might swap out these behind me and put the watercolour paintings in. That's probably what I'll do. So that's what I love about it, is that I can just swap them out depending on whatever it is that I am working on. So one of the reasons why I'll be focusing on watercolour work over the coming months is because I am running my watercolour-based 6-week e-course, Modern Mixed Media. And in that course, we use watercolour as the main paint, but we combine it with all sorts of different mediums, including collage, pen, pastel. We try out different substrates, so not just working on paper, but also working on things like aquaboard and even raw canvas. So it's a really interesting approach to watercolour, certainly not a traditional approach. So, you know, it's something that I always get really into once I start that process of gearing up for the course. So I'll be doing that over the next couple of weeks, and the course will be opening for registration on the 28th of September. So I will leave a link in the description for anyone who is interested in learning a bit more about that course. There is two more supplies as well over here, which I thought, 3 actually, that I thought might be interesting. So I bought a couple of new brayers. I have been using this brayer here for my jelly plate printing. I'm not sure what brand it is, but I keep on using it the wrong way, and I scratch the paint with the little area that you can rest the brayer on. So I wanted to try a different type of brayer, and I had heard from other artists that the Speedball brand is really good, and I liked the idea of it being a soft brayer as well, so it will, you know, just have that more spongy kind of feel to it. This one's quite hard, so I thought I'd try that out. So I've got 2 of these brayers here because I am really enjoying the jelly plate printing. It's super fun. If you haven't tried it, I would definitely think about giving it a go, because it's such a great way to get into the creative process, and then you can use those prints in other types of artwork. So it's really versatile. Then I've got a sewing awl here. So I just picked up this one because one of the things that we do in the Modern Mixed Media course is combine stitching and embroidery with watercolour, and it creates such interesting textures, and this little tool can help in creating little holes in your piece of paper so that you can easily get your thread through. So I will be trying that out. And then I also have some of these needle tip glue applicators. I think that's what they call them when you buy them. They're on Amazon. And what I wanted to do was try out putting paint in these and seeing what kind of line work I could get. So I've seen other artists using these, I just haven't tried them myself. And I thought that would be a fun thing to test out. So I purchased those. So that's everything that I've got to share with you as far as supplies. So I hope that you've enjoyed this tour and enjoyed hearing about how I have updated the space, and also about these new supplies that I'll be using over the coming months. But just before I go, I also wanted to, I guess, reiterate what I said at the beginning, that there really is no such thing as a perfect studio. Of course, I'm incredibly grateful to have this space, but I just wanted to offer you encouragement. I know that you can create amazing art from wherever you are. I know because I look back at the past and I'm often absolutely wowed when I look at the creativity and what was happening for me when I was super busy, young kids, and I was just making art. at the kitchen table or at a little laptop desk we had in the corner of the lounge room. So sometimes those constraints can actually be really powerful for our creativity because it encourages us to problem solve, get creative. It puts a bit of fire in our belly because we know that we want to make art and we just have to make it work. And there are a lot of practical solutions. I know that I've mentioned IKEA quite a bit, but I definitely found some of the things from IKEA really helpful when I was starting out. Things like the trolleys, trays, baskets that enable you to gather up your supplies and have them accessible and portable so that if you do need to pack up your area, like if you're working on a dining room table, that you can easily just put things in a trolley or a basket and stuff like that. So I just wanted to mention that because there are many different ways that you can create a beautiful creative space. And really it is about the mindset of wanting to be creative. So I hope that you've enjoyed this video and thank you so much for being a part of this creative journey with me. It's been really exciting to take this step into having this dedicated studio space. If you've got any comments or questions, please leave them below or share a little bit about your studio space or your creative space where you love to make art. So I hope that you enjoyed it and that you'll join me again next time.